Hello, this is the Circularity Catalyst Podcast, where regenerative thinking meets real-world strategy. I'm your host, Ken Alston. Hello, this is Ken Alston with the Circularity Catalyst Podcast, and today my guest is Jason Elate from InsectFlux.com, and we're going to be talking about a new global marketplace connecting insect farming with the agri-food industry. Jason, welcome to the show. I'm excited to have you here with us today.
Hi, Ken. Thank you so much for the opportunity. It's a real pleasure.
Great. Let's start with an introduction to Insect Flux and your marketplace. Tell us a little bit about how it got started and what you're hoping to achieve.
2 years ago, and of course, thank you for the question. I get this question every week at this point, and I love to have a platform to talk about it, of course. I did a double major in politics and economics to become a diplomat. Fun fact, 2 years ago. This has nothing to do with diplomacy. I can tell you that. Well, a little bit. Maybe we'll get over that later. That was 2 years ago. In terms of me, I'm 25 today, so I was 23, and me jumping into the real world, if you want. And I graduated in spring of 2023, and I had the summertime to basically be intentional. I had free time before starting corporate in fall of 2023. And I believe that you could figure out the world that you live in, the context, the environment, so that you control, you double down on how you want to show up in that world, which is why I chose diplomacy. But I believe in reverse engineering everything, including myself, and I could see myself pivoting in a near/midterm future. So I thought I could be intentional that summer of 2023 to figure something out in regards to a real world problem with a real world solution, which would be reflective of added value. To me, it's about added value. So I believe that we live in a world that's made of a puzzle of answers. You can learn how to ask better questions to get better answers, to make better decisions. 2 summers ago, I asked myself, what should exist by 2030 that will be more relevant and viable by 2050? Ken, turns out that my answer is my startup, Insect Flux. Puzzle in 2050, puzzle in 2030, puzzle today. What are the gaps that are aligned that will become critically more relevant that are under-addressed today? And this brought me onto the path of the global food waste crisis. Tons and tons and tons, to be more exact, over 1.2 billion tons of organic surpluses byproducts are wasted every year. It's a $1.1 trillion problem. 1,100 billions are wasted because of that. The gap that we're attacking, essentially with my startup, is based on reintroducing those nutrients back into value chains rather than focusing on producing less, consuming less. We could be reintroducing and be more efficient in terms of that, which basically led me onto I stumbled upon the insect industry. And by doing my homework, I was just looking for what I'm creating today. I was shocked that it does not exist, meaning a B2B2C global marketplace connecting the agri-food industry to the insect farming industry. That would be my answer. Of course, I have a lot more to say, but that would be a start.
In doing that research, delving in to try and find a way through that maze, what have you seen as being the biggest problem in linking the agri-food waste problem with insect farms?
Very important question. And by the way, what I also tell my team always is, you don't know what you don't know. So the question is always, what should you know? Turns out a lot. So I've been learning every day on this journey, and I think that's the real luxury. The insect industry, to be super concise, is valued at around $2 billion globally. Two of the main problems is based on the fact that it's mainly offline and fragmented. So the opportunity stems from digitizing and consolidating. The agri-food industry is also paying to get rid of organic surpluses, byproducts, and waste. Turns out that insect farms need exactly these products as insect feed, and they're paying to acquire them as insect feed. So we're introducing a new business model for the agri-food players to now sell or at least donate those products, agri-food products, to insect farm as insect feed, which turns out to be fueling the insect industry at the same time. Now, one last point, the insect industry being a new industry also means that before you actually connect the agri-food industry to the insect industry, the agri-food industry is one of the biggest industries by default. They also have what they conceptualize as their best solutions. You're actually competing against that. And what I tell my team is also, whether you do B2B or B2C, it's always individual to individual. Even if this new AI era, And so psychology is at core of every single interaction. No matter the business, what you're actually attacking is human nature or about human nature. So in that sense, before we actually connect the agri-food industry, let's digitize and consolidate the insect industry and players involved, of course, to receive the agri-food industry so that they not only come, but they stay and we actually create this new paradigm.
So does that require you to do some internal education on both sides
Yes.
to make sure they both get the idea behind what you're doing?
Correct. And in the last, so I've had the raw idea for this startup, like the raw idea. 2 years ago, almost to the day, we became a company almost a year and a half ago. And we just launched Insect Flux V1 about 6-7 weeks ago. In that sense, the goal is in the last 2 years, I've done a little over, I'm almost at 900 interviews globally. You don't even know you don't know. So I want to know everything. And basically the premise is what's the problem? Who's experiencing that problem? And being thorough in that sense, but also focusing on what do they have in terms of solutions, and you being able to differentiate would be reflective of the added value you'd be creating for them. So not only they'd be coming, they'd stay, we'd be able to build together. So in the last 2 years, it was about learning, so that we execute, because it's about execution. And with that right now, basically.
What's been one of the hardest parts of starting the business? When we talked before we started the recording, you'd mentioned about getting your startup funding.
Mm.
Would you
Okay.
say that or something else was
Before you
one
even
of the hardest
speak,
parts?
no, because basically in terms of value, one, I don't put money on a pedestal. That's one. Okay. So there's a lot of people there's a lot of money around. Basically, it's your job as a founder to de-risk their investment so that they commit in regards to value. So it's not about money, actually. That's one. Second, the biggest constraint has been around the fact that the industry is mainly offline and fragmented. So I have to find the players. They have to find me. So I decided what would be the most cost efficient approach? People need to know what you're building so that you can see what sticks, right? In terms of whether people show interest or there's actually real kind of added value on the field. You need to know and people need to know. My biggest constraint has been around finding those players and bridging this new kind of knowledge gap with a real product at the same time, right? So the 2 years might seem long in terms of learning, but the compounding of knowledge is incredible. And of course, today I'm now I'm an industry expert. And the beauty about this is you can also you're at the edge of innovation, being in contact with all of these players so that you create the best product possible for all the players. I would be
Well,
definitely around that for sure.
yeah, when you're starting a marketplace, obviously you need to balance the two sides of the market, right? And when you're starting, you have nobody on either side. So how did you tackle that issue?
Yes, we're there right now, to be honest. And technically since the beginning, but since we just launched, we get to test that with the real product, is my point. I believe in paradoxes. So it's very interesting to see the chicken and egg problem, which is something referred to in the marketplace world, and is very real. That one, and also the cold start problem. People want to go on the marketplace because they're products, but the merchants want to post their products because they're consumers. So it's in that sense
Right.
paradox. So the goal here is to understand, in terms of those who are a part of your ecosystem, what is the core ICP, which would be the core customer profile that you're looking for, ideal customer profile, if you want. In that sense, you want to focus on the insect industry style. And of course, I've asked myself the question, if I believe that we live in a world that's made of a puzzle of answers, my hedge comes from asking myself more and more and more and more questions, but also being biased towards action because it's about execution, right? So in that sense, my goal was to understand who has the biggest constraints and how would those constraints being unlocked would enable more. It's on the insect industry side. The agri-food industry already exists. Everyone needs to eat, including animals. And those who are buying these products are human beings. So once again, you're dealing with human nature. And the insect industry is a new industry, already has their own kind of problems. Before you connect it to the agri-food industry, let's solve those so that the interaction between both industries are as seamless as possible. Do not say seamless. So in that sense, the chicken and egg problem, to answer your question, we're focusing on the insect industry first. Of course, one of the reasons why I call my startup Insect Flux, by connecting the insect industry to the agri-food industry, of course, huge industry, we can now incentivize most people to now pay attention to this new industry, but also democratize access to all the things, all the other things that could be enabled through the insect industry implementation.
What is something that you've learned through this period of starting the business? One thing that you wish everybody else knew about insect-based proteins?
Okay, I was wondering where you'd go with this question. And if I could kind of say one thing before I actually address your question, let me just write this down. Key thing about insect-based products. Okay, so sub-segment, like a little tangent, you feel free to aim high in terms of being bold. You won't actually be alone. And a lot of people, if you're actually doing great work, a lot of people will actually come to you. You'll be very surprised. So allow yourself to aim high, aim big, so that you get yourself in position to actually get there by asking yourself the right questions and being biased towards action, because it's about knowing so that you execute. So please feel free to dream big, essentially. Now, to address your point, there are millions of species of insects, which of course tends to be overlooked. I'll say it this way. How much do you think the dinosaur industry would be valued today if they still existed? We can't even imagine, right? Well, the insect industry has existed for almost double the time. Before the dinosaurs went through the dinosaur extinction, and they're still here today. How much do you think this industry would be worth? Not 2 billion is my point. So as we reverse engineer this, what would be the premise around the potential of this industry? And to me, it's based on the diversity. Not only are we talking about millions of species, I was just talking with the team recently who has developed a cure for breast cancer from bee venom extraction. Do you understand? And the fact that it's here right around us is incredible, and most people don't even know. So the potential stems from this industry already existing. By default, they're very efficient in terms of their application, that what they can do. Let's democratize access to that by enabling the best system ever known to the world, meaning nature, to help us and to enable that through our inefficient systems to attain a real new paradigm.
So your marketplace is both B2B and B2C, is that correct?
Correct.
How do you get the right pairing to the right part of the website?
So A/B testing will be key, especially since we're creating something new. And of course, I've had industry players on calls with us, with my software engineers, so that we're actually creating exactly what is required. So there's the Insect Flux V1 is focusing on products and equipment, insect-based products and equipment. My team is currently working on Insect Flux V2, which will be for services, products, equipment, and services. A lot of people have questions. Turns out a lot of people have answers. Rather than having experts on my team, we could leverage the experts in the world to now answer those questions so that we bridge the knowledge gap, and we'd be introducing the marketplace to enable all of that. In that sense, the B2C already exists because there are people looking for insect-based products themselves, insect-based products for their pets, for example, but also in terms of feed. So we decided after a few calls, retailers would have their own kind of section because they're not looking for the same products as consumers, and consumers, same thing. So very black and white in terms of classification, but we're willing to A/B test just to see what sticks the most and to be open-minded in terms of how could that be introduced into the world, basically. But yes, the separation has to be very, very clear.
And in terms of things like the equipment, are you thinking about leasing models so that it's not just buying and selling?
Very interesting question. Our first partner is called Flybox. We have 3 partnerships at this point. I'm working on technically 2 others. We can't spoil just yet, but you'll definitely love it. The first one is called Flybox. They build modular insect farms. It's about a container size. It's a container size globally. The new business model that we're putting forward is for anyone to have their own insect farm. And the goal would be to also enable other manufacturers to, as you mentioned, lease. The goal here I didn't mention this, which is super important. No matter the features that are North Star, if you want, what I tell my team is based on two vectors. Okay. The first one being reducing costs at scale. We're competing as an industry to also breach other industries into other industries, which is super key. And on the other hand, democratize access to the industry. And both will be through us on the premise of network effects. Okay. So the network effects that we're trying to foster is very important. So as we get more players on the platform, the added value for all players increases. Now, put in the equation, reducing costs at scale, we're helping that narrative. Democratizing access will help in that narrative. Leasing would be a way to democratize access to the industry even more, so that, of course, we get more players working, executing in this field.
And leasing is one of the circular economy business models that's trying to get us away from
Correct.
the old linear economy. What would you say is something that is today hidden behind the scenes that you wish your clients could actually see, so that it would excite them even more about the prospect of working with?
There's so much potential around. So by 2050, we're expecting 9.5 billion people on Earth. As mentioned, a lot of players are focusing on producing less, consuming less. We'll be producing more and consuming more. So it is about really introducing nutrients back into value chains. Well, the beauty about what we're introducing is on a human nature level, self-actualization. A lot of people would actually, one of my biggest bets is if people knew, they would, but they don't, so they won't. A lot of people would contribute to a new way to address the food waste crisis because everyone knows that it's ridiculous. So rather than having a centralized solution where we have to basically not necessarily subsidize, but count on other parties to get it done, you can enable people to join the race and actually reduce food waste anywhere while also fueling the insect industry at the same time. The premise of what we're actually introducing is based on privatizing the organic sector, but enabling people to tap into the added value that is being created. So not only enabling people to make money off of that, but also enabling them to contribute to reducing the food waste crisis globally. So in that sense, one of the cool things that we'll be able to introduce is to anyone to have their own insect farm. But as once we'll be ready to deploy at scale, it becomes a game of the more and more insect farms we're able to put online, the more and more the volumes are getting reduced, the more and more the insect industry can actually thrive. And by having more insect feed, you can have more insects. We can now democratize access to a lot more. So when people think about the chemical extraction, pharmaceuticals, cosmeceuticals, these are also the products that insect-based products that we'll be introducing as well. It's much more than just food in that sense, but it starts with insect feed so that we get more insects so that we can have a lot more. So it's just the beginning in that sense. The goal would also be to enable, I'm talking to all major banks in North America, all major banks, almost major banks in North America to enable financing and insurance of insect farms. Once again, democratizing access to the industry so that you facilitate players to jump in. And now the game becomes around if the agri-food players know about an insect farm that's close to them that might be paying to acquire their products, rather than filling up landfills for nothing, you're truly fueling a new industry while reducing your carbon footprint impact. This will become very, very valuable in the world.
Yeah, in the end, all sustainability is ultimately local, because no matter what you have or get, it's where you are, right? So,
Mhm. And by the way, this is such an important point. Probably I would have forgotten to mention this. Yes, we're introducing. I was about to say a little like Uber, exactly like Uber, a global platform where you get to you won't take a 6-hour Uber. You'll take a 30-minute, 20-minute, 10-minute because of the regional dynamics. Same thing. You don't want to ship agri-food products between states, for example. It has a regional dynamic. In that sense, you want to foster a regional context of unlocking cities, just like Uber, so that you get to enable these local economies. In that sense, spent grains, when you think about breweries, for example, in the context of tourism, which fuels a lot of economies globally, it turns out that spent grains tend to be used in the brewery context, tend to be one of the best insect feed. So rather than having them not only get rid of them, because spent grains have basically no value, also paying to get rid of them, meaning the spent grains, they can now fuel the insect industry at the same time, get paid for that, while also contributing to this new kind of dynamic of circularity, of course. By the way, fun fact, I will be making a new LinkedIn post this week about this. I had a call with an investor in Asia, investor meeting last week, and they're funding an insect farm that's co-locating with a data center, Ken. In a world of AI boom, modernization, there's a bigger need for data centers just in general. And turns out that one of the biggest problems is excess heat. One of the biggest problems in the insect industry is around climate control, since you have to deal with biotech insects. And by co-locating insect with data centers, that excess heat becomes a value for insect farms while fostering this new kind of green economy for the data centers at the same time. So this symbiosis will be able to unlock in every region in multiple aspects, segments of multiple fields, as a matter of fact.
And does the same local context apply to the selection of insects?
Brilliant question. The answer is no. As you, for example, in Africa, Asia, South America, they get to benefit from the higher temperature by default. So the quality, the insects could be the same, but the way you adapt won't be. So ideally, well, by default, there are many, the biodiversity all across the globe is different. So there is access to multiple kinds of insects that's basically respective of specific region, which is fine. But in that sense, you need to adapt in regards to your geolocation for sure, which is why we could have more insect farm in North America. Okay, what are the biggest constraints? Okay, cost of energy. Okay, what could I do about that? And this is what I meant by understanding the core of the problem. And so having a better understanding of what could be the solutions. So yes, there are millions of species. There are species that you only see in different kinds of regions. There are species that you could adapt in regards to the tech that you're using to have an efficient insect farming activities.
So I saw that you had a news release recently about a collaboration in Africa. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Africa Circular, yes, they're active in 44 countries. Once again, it's great to have an idea, but it is about execution. And turns out that they're also established in 15 countries at a regulatory framework. When you introduce something, of course, Africa Circular focuses on circularity, and they're already doubling down on the insect industry as a good lever, as a good way to deal with the waste management. So the goal here is to foster even more of that while enabling a new solution, what would be the B2B2C marketplace enabling transactions, not only just in Africa, but in regards to the different regions in Africa as well. But the beauty about this partnership is also based on the regulatory framework. We have this bottom-up approach. As mentioned, I did a double major in politics and economics. You need to take in consideration the regulatory framework and the institutions involved so that you democratize access to the industry. But as we digitize, Ken, there's also Uber, Airbnb, Amazon, all the big platforms, even the small platforms are at first, at core, a data platform. So as we digitize, we get more data. Let's democratize access to that data so that all the relevant parties can know and act accordingly. This is very important in terms of bridging a new industry in a context that's very favorable for that industry, in this case, Africa. So super happy about this partnership. And the goal is to enable more on the field with the right parties. This is the intent and how we're doubling down in terms of that as well. So very, very good. And I can't wait to go there. Last time I went to Africa was 3 years ago in 2022. And I can't wait to go there to actually focus on the insect industry for sure.
So what's the one thing you'd like our listeners and viewers to walk away with, knowing about you and your business and where you're going over the next couple of years?
The narrative around creating a new market means the potential for untapped value, right? Well, I remember being in my room, Ken, 2 years ago, thinking that, okay, this is interesting. This has legs, whiskey. Okay, I will need an army for this. I can't do this alone by default. And by the way, I believe that you can design your life in a way that you get to self-address your own gaps And one of my gaps was that I had profound trust issues. So I remember being in my room with my board of notes. You can even imagine a wall of notes. And
I have one right
thinking
in
that,
front of me.
I would think so, yes. I guess we're two nerds speaking to each other at this point. But
Exactly.
the point here was, I will need an army for this. And I was hoping that people would be mobilized if they had a solution at hand. So not only are we seeing that, which to me is an incredible feeling. I feel so grateful by default. It's my fuel, even if I could say it this way. But the point here is, as we progress, a lot of people will want to have solutions at hand. This is exactly what we're offering. But rather than thinking that we know everything, because we don't, let's build something that makes sense for everyone so that everyone could join the race. So the goal here is to truly enable a new solution. And by the way, one of my mantras is, in a world full of copies, be an original. A lot of people think that they have to copy everything because it's actually easier. I believe in paradoxes, as mentioned, so you get to solve more outward problems as you solve more inward problems. So my goal here is, I believe that the best gift of life is to be able to give. That's my gift to the world, genuinely. And the goal would be to enable anyone to join this race, actually create more added value for them, control their own narrative while solving one of the biggest problems that shouldn't exist today, right? And this narrative is also based on the fact that, to me, love is the true North Star. And how could you foster that through a real product so that people can feel seen, heard, understood, and actually enable their families to eat every day, or enable more added value for their collectivity, their community, wherever they're at. It's a real pleasure to devote my life to this. And I can't wait to have more players jumping on board, not because it sounds cool, because it works.
So what would you say then is your biggest superpower as a new company?
Well, that's a good question. I think the key thing, okay, it's a strange answer, of course, as I come up with this. Critical thinking is very important. And the fact that we don't like to assume anything. So first principle approach, basically revisiting your assumptions to now redefine how could added value not only exist, how could it be unlocked? So it turns out that our superpower comes from not only the questioning that you're able to put forward, if you want, but it's based on the fact that how do we get to unlock more added value on the field, which is why I come back to my mantra of, in a world full of copies, being original. You don't have to copy other players. It tends to be a strategy of a lot of players, but by differentiating, the key thing now becomes that people need to know about what you're building. And since it works, the fact that more and more people could know would mean more and more value for those people as well. So our true kind of superpower stems from the questioning aspect to unlock more on the field and being able to be bold in terms of that and not putting fears on a pedestal. Things can be scary sometimes, but are they actually scary? Or do you think the idea of them is? So once again, this right there was me not assuming. Let's go deeper to figure it out. So in that sense, we've been able to move
Some
this
of
way
it is a
because of that.
mind game, right?
All of it, almost.
Exactly.
All of it, yes.
Yeah, and
Yes.
I must say I've enjoyed in hearing your answers. Your very strong focus on action.
Yes.
That's something that's really important to me. One of my collaborations in the UK and Europe is called Real Circularity, where real means doing it right in the real world. So taking
Oui.
action and not just talking about it. So I applaud you for that very strong action orientation, which, given you're a startup, is obviously it's necessary. But
Yes.
I can see that you have that firmly in your sights.
And by the way, I also want to mention one thing. I don't know everything. I might give off this energy of being confident because I am, but it stems from me. I've asked myself this question before. I know the answer is my point, but I love not having the answer to question. Imagine if you're able to bring me new questions, I find new answers, I might be able to execute better. So this is why I was actually going to see other people to understand the narrative. the fact that the question is scary is not the point. We're living in the real world. Let's execute in the real world. Okay, how
Yeah.
does the real world look? Right.
Yeah, you have to start where you are, right?
Exactly. So where are
And
we?
yeah. Well, I
Exactly.
think I think I agree with you. We're in a stage where there's a lot of confusion and there's a lot of old thinking, and I think, you know, I've been around long enough to know that I'm still learning every single day. Every interview I do, I learn something.
The
Every new
luxury.
book I read,
Mhm.
I have a pile of books here, about 7 high, that I'm in the middle of reading. I mean, I think lifelong learning and keep pushing yourself is an absolute, necessity these days.
And I love that you value this. It's I feel like a lot of people don't value that enough, but it's also reflective of what they could achieve for them. So it's like, why wouldn't you allow yourself to think outside the box? What is the box? You know? And to me, this has been a game for years. The compounding of that is the confidence that you see right now. Yes, I've allowed myself to ask these questions so that I know the answers, so that I get to execute. It is about execution, indeed.
Yeah, it's like any scientific discovery. You're testing your hypotheses as you go, and you're revising as needed, depending on what you observe.
Correct.
In
Correct.
the field in real life. Another thing that I believe to my core is that the old definitions of sustainability need revision. They were okay for their time 40 years ago when nobody ever thought about this before, but we've learned a lot more in the past 40 years, and that's why I came up with my own
I was about to
three
ask you,
three-dimensional version of sustainability.
what
It's
is it?
one of my big aha moments during COVID, when things were obviously chaotic for everybody.
Mm,
I had more thinking time. Right, normally you move on to the next thing, the next day, the
correct.
next project, the next
Mm,
problem. And with COVID, things were so different that I had some downtime, and I kept asking myself one question over and over and over again, which is, why are we less sustainable today than when we started? I mean, I was one of the pioneers of corporate sustainability 40 years ago, which is why I ended up in the US from the UK. And why are we less sustainable today than we were 40 years ago? And my answer really came down to the fact that we're using a flat two-dimensional model. And it's a model that's not even cyclical. And nature, as we know, is cyclical in everything it does. So I came up with a three-dimensional model that is cyclical and is based on sustainability of life. I mean, you're working with living insects. We're living beings. Um,
correct.
to me, the ultimate definition of sustainability in the context we're talking about is that we're trying to sustain life on Earth. And along the way, we're trying to have fun and have purpose, like you
I
said at
did
the
it.
beginning,
Yes.
and make some money so we can, achieve whatever we want to achieve with our lives. So there's a parallel. Well, there's a necessity. Is actually a podcast episode I released last week. Was about um, walking and chewing gum at the same time. I mean, you have to run your business, be profitable, have your life, enjoy your life, and at the same time, you need to contribute to maintaining and advancing the conditions that support life on Earth. And if your business it may be supporting you financially, but if you're working 100 hours a week and you're also, harming the conditions that support life on Earth, then you've got half of the question missing in your life and your work.
I love that you, even the way you told this, you believe yourself. You know,
Absolutely.
and this is what I think about what you do shouldn't really matter. You know, what you think about what you do should matter. Not-
Yeah.
so I love that I can tell that you believe yourself, because this is one of your values. I definitely appreciate that. And of course, I believe that the as we progress, a lot of people will understand that this is not a luxury to think this way. It will become kind of it already is the default, but there's a lot of distraction. And by the way, I believe that in a world of distraction, you shouldn't actually hope to be in a world that's less noisy, because you could be alone in your cottage and noise in your head, noise with you, right? So to me, it's about cutting through the noise. And so the key thing for that is about self-awareness. Every room that I'll be in, I'll be with Jason. I'll be Jason. So who's Jason? Right? In that sense, the confidence that you see from me stems from that. I've allowed myself to ask myself the right questions so that I know myself. And in a world that's full of uncertainty, I become the certainty in my life. So being a founder, having that quality is very important because you're working kind of blindly sometimes, but it's okay to kind of finding your, in French, we say point de repère, which would be kind of in this case, myself being the focus point of, okay, how do I want to move through this? How do I want to do, what would my team look like? Right? Because I have my strengths and weaknesses. I need to be knowledgeable about them in that sense. So, and by the way, what we're putting forward in terms of mantra for the company is based on nothing is lost, nothing is wasted, everything is transformed. Absolutely. And now imagine this at scale. So not only do I believe, since we're also new and global first mover in that sense, that Insect Flux is a unicorn, I actually believe it's a decacorn. I can say this to everyone, but I'm bold enough to say it because $1,100 billion problem, introducing a new solution where we get to divert the waste as well, you'd be very surprised what we'd be able to create. And of course, I'm definitely looking forward to that.
Yeah, I'm of a mind that I can work with any company anywhere on any product, and I know I'll find a solution. I may
Yes,
know nothing about their processes, their practices, because I'm not bringing the domain experience. I'm bringing my wisdom of 40 years of working and thinking about this and finding solutions. And so it's I work on principles on a principled level, and the
come on.
principles never change. Gravity doesn't change, right? The way the world works doesn't change in that way. So it's how you look at the problem that's in front of you, and then collectively with the knowledge of the people who are the domain experts inside the company, then we can find ways forward.
Ken,
What's
what you
one
just
last thing?
mentioned,
Yeah, sure.
this, to me, I feel so seen with what you just mentioned. I thought I was crazy when I was younger. I was just in the wrong rooms. Thank you for this. Yes, I
Yeah.
believe the exact same thing. And working with people that think like this, you'd be shocked what you're able to create. And this is my premise now. I don't have to think that it's not possible. It is possible. How could I see that basically? I could talk about this maybe on another
No,
podcast, but
we could have a whole new podcast on,
exactly.
on the inner work.
Mhm.
The inner work has to come before the outer work.
1000%. And you get
So,
to know this on this journey for sure.
yeah. Well, I had a revelation about a year ago of something that happened when I was 11 years old, and I didn't realize until I was much older, as you can see, um, how that revelation, that thing that just happened, affected all the rest of my life.
Incredible.
And from that revelation, which only came to me a year or so ago,
Wow.
it
Okay.
changed my whole view on what's going forward with the rest of my life. So
Wow.
yeah, I feel like the living embodiment of working on this inner work. No matter what your domain happens to be, that's where you have to focus.
I love that. And
So
I'm
as we
so glad
come
that
to,
you know this.
yeah, good. Well, as we come to the end of this episode, uh, what else would you like to let people know about what you're doing before we close out?
I feel like a lot of people sometimes can be intimidated by whether it's someone or something new or whatever it is. It's basically your perspective. I wanted people to know that please come to me. Please don't overthink your capacity of contributing. It's to each their own. And by default, anything would be better than nothing. So whether it's a perspective, a comment, insights, whatever it is, the goal is also to execute. So it's about being able to know. So I'm so open-minded in terms of that. And it is about execution with other players as well. So not only just my team, but being able to work with different players globally. It turns out that synergies in terms of the industry that we're putting forward will be crazy, already are crazy, but will be crazy as the world knows. But I need the world to know. Please come forward and reach out to us, whether it's on our website, LinkedIn, me personally. I'll be super happy to collaborate and create more added value for anyone. The goal is also, since we're introducing something new, I feel like the bulk of the value can also be set in stone today. You can set the foundations right now. So I think right now is the key point to collaborate And as we kind of bridge the knowledge gap more and more, being able to execute better directly on the field, I'm more than happy to contribute with anyone that could help us on this journey for sure. And let's create more added value for everyone to not only this company, but features, partnerships together.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for your time, Jason, and for telling us about this new enterprise that's a couple of months old now. And I can see it's going to go a lot further. And with your inner work and your outer work, it's going to do well. So
Ken,
thank you very much.
thank you so much to you. I'll be happy to come back to give you a follow-up later on. And
Absolutely.
if you have any other questions, please feel free to reach out. You as well. Real pleasure to talk to you.
I certainly will. Thanks very much.
Have a good day.
I'm your host, Ken Alston.